It's a Monday morning in the Mexican border city of Ciudad Juarez. A man in a polo shirt walks into a branch of one of the world's most respected banks and slides a box across the counter through a teller window that has been physically widened to accommodate containers exactly this size. Inside is around $500,000. The teller counts it, deposits it, and the man walks out. He'll be back tomorrow with another box. Except this is HSBC, not some back alley exchange house in a border town. The Hong Kong and Shanghai Banking Corporation was founded in 1865 to finance the opium and tea trade between the British Empire and the Far East. By the early 2000s, it has grown into one of the 5 largest financial institutions on the planet, assets exceeding $2.5 trillion in operations in over 80 countries. And yet, between 2003 and 2010, this institution will become the preferred bank of the most violent drug trafficking organizations in the Western Hemisphere. Not through an offshore subsidiary, but through its own branches, its own teller windows, and its own wire transfer systems. The Sinaloa Cartel, led by Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, the most wanted man in the Americas, is pumping billions of dollars in narcotics revenue through HSBC's books, and nobody at the top seems particularly inclined to stop it. The story begins in Mexico. HSBC's Mexican affiliate, known as HBMX, operates hundreds of branches across the country. In the mid-2000s, Mexico is ground zero for the global cocaine trade. Colombian cartels, principally the Norte del Valle organization, ship product northward. Mexican cartels move it across the U.S. border. The cash flows back south, mountains of it. $20 bills rubber-banded into bricks stuffed into duffel bags, packed into specially constructed boxes. It has to go somewhere, and HBMX is open for business. The scale is staggering. HBMX's bulk cash operations are processing more U.S. dollars than any other Mexican bank. More, in fact, than even many American banks. Between 2007 and 2008 alone, HBMX shipped $7 billion in physical U.S. currency back to the United States. $7 billion. An amount so enormous that U.S. authorities later conclude the only plausible source is drug trafficking. There simply isn't enough legitimate cross-border commerce to account for it. Inside the branches, the evidence is hiding in plain sight. Teller windows in certain locations have been physically modified, widened so that couriers can pass oversized cash boxes directly to bank staff. The couriers are not subtle. They arrive with the regularity of postal workers, depositing hundreds of thousands of dollars per visit, often in small denominations. The kind of bills that pass through thousands of hands on street corners before being bundled and brought to the bank. If you work at one of these branches, you know exactly what's happening. The smell alone would tell you, the chemical tang of cocaine residue clinging to the paper. Meanwhile, back in London, HSBC's global headquarters is engaged in a different kind of operation. Cost-cutting. Under a program designed to boost profitability, the bank slashes its compliance division, the department responsible for flagging suspicious transactions and preventing money laundering. At one point, the bank's entire anti-money laundering operation for its global private banking unit is overseen by a single compliance officer. One person for an operation spanning dozens of countries and tens of billions of dollars. The consequences are predictable. Over a period of years, HSBC fails to properly monitor more than $670 billion in wire transfers flowing from its Mexican operations alone. That's not a typo. $670 billion. Transactions that should have been screened, flagged, investigated, and in many cases reported to law enforcement are simply waved through. The bank's automated monitoring systems are either inadequate or deliberately ignored. Alerts pile up by the tens of thousands. Almost none of them are acted upon. And it isn't just Mexico. HSBC's compliance failures extend to some of the most heavily sanctioned regimes on earth: Iran, Libya, Myanmar, Cuba, Sudan. Through a practice known as stripping, the bank's affiliates deliberately remove identifying information from wire transfers, scrubbing names, addresses, and country codes so that transactions originating in sanctioned nations can slip through American filters undetected. Nearly $9.5 billion in transactions linked to Iran passed through HSBC's systems during this period. The bank isn't simply negligent, it is actively engineering ways to circumvent the law. Inside the compliance department, some people are trying to sound the alarm. Junior officers file reports, middle managers raise concerns, memos circulate warning that the bank's Mexican operations are dangerously exposed to cartel money. One internal review identifies HBMX as being at the highest possible risk for money laundering. The response from senior management is essentially silence. The warnings are noted, filed, and forgotten. Profit margins look healthy. The cash keeps flowing. Then, in 2003, the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, the U.S. regulator responsible for overseeing national banks, formally cites HSBC for deficiencies in its anti-money laundering controls. It's a shot across the bow. HSBC pledges to clean up its act, submits remediation plans, promises reforms. Years pass. Examiner after examiner returns and finds the same problems. The pledges are hollow. The reforms exist on paper, but not in practice. The OCC issues further warnings, further citations. Nothing changes. The money is too good. By 2012, the dam finally breaks. The U.S. Senate Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations, chaired by Senator Carl Levin of Michigan, with Senator Tom Coburn of Oklahoma as ranking member, launches a full-scale inquiry. Their staff spends over a year combing through more than 1 million documents. What they produce is a 339-page report that reads less like a regulatory filing and more like a crime novel. It lays bare, in excruciating detail, every failure, every ignored warning, every cynical calculation that allowed a global bank to operate as a de facto money laundering machine for drug cartels and rogue states. The Senate hearing is devastating. HSBC's own Chief Compliance Officer, David Bagley, sits before the subcommittee and testifies. Midway through the proceedings, he does something almost unheard of in corporate Washington. He resigns, right there, on camera, before the senators and the press. It is the closest thing to an admission of guilt that anyone at HSBC will ever offer. In Brooklyn, federal prosecutors in the Eastern District of New York are building a criminal case. The lead prosecutor is U.S. Attorney Loretta Lynch, a meticulous, formidable lawyer who will later become Attorney General of the United States. Her team assembles evidence for at least 175 potential criminal charges, charges that could include money laundering, sanctions violations, fraud, charges that could, in theory, cripple the bank, charges that could send individuals to prison. But then, something happens behind closed doors. Something that will ignite a firestorm of public outrage and reshape the debate about corporate accountability for a generation. Across the Atlantic, the British government is watching the investigation with growing alarm. HSBC is headquartered in London. It employs nearly 300,000 people worldwide. It is woven into the fabric of global finance. Word reaches Whitehall that American prosecutors are seriously considering a full criminal indictment. Letters begin to move through diplomatic channels. The UK's Financial Services Authority communicates its concerns. Senior figures in the British government, including officials in Chancellor George Osborne's office, send messages to US authorities, to the Federal Reserve, to the Department of Justice. The argument is blunt. A criminal prosecution of HSBC could trigger a loss of confidence in the bank. Depositors could flee. Counterparties could pull back. The effects could cascade through the global banking system. Remember, this is 2012. The scars of the 2008 financial crisis are still raw. The specter of another Lehman Brothers haunts every regulator in the world. On December 11, 2012, Attorney General Eric Holder steps before the cameras and announces the resolution. There will be no criminal indictment. Instead, HSBC will enter into a deferred prosecution agreement. The bank will pay a fine of $1.92 billion. At the time, the largest penalty ever imposed on a bank. It sounds like a colossal number. It is roughly 5 weeks of HSBC's profit. No individual executive is charged with a crime. Not one. The people who widened the teller windows, the managers who ignored the compliance alerts, the senior leaders who stripped sanctions data from wire transfers, none of them will see the inside of a courtroom. The bank pays its fine, issues a statement expressing deep regret, and continues operating as before. 3 months later, in March 2013, Attorney General Holder sits before the Senate Judiciary Committee. He is asked why HSBC was not criminally prosecuted. His answer becomes one of the most quoted and most reviled statements in the history of American financial regulation. Some institutions, Holder explains, have become so large that criminal charges against them could have a negative impact on the national economy, perhaps even the world economy. The press reduces this to 3 words that will echo for years: too big to jail. The fallout is immediate and furious. Senators on both sides of the aisle express outrage. Victims' advocates point out that the Sinaloa cartel, whose money HSBC laundered, is responsible for tens of thousands of murders. Editorialists ask a simple question: if a bank can facilitate billions in drug money and sanctions evasion and face nothing more than a fine, what exactly is the crime? What is the line that cannot be crossed? The BBC's Panorama program later obtains leaked documents showing the full extent of the behind-the-scenes lobbying. The letters from British officials, the warnings about systemic risk, the careful, coordinated pressure campaign to ensure that prosecution never happened.